2-1. All right, so Direct Action Day. Direct Action Day is resulted in this violence, right? Michael, can you tell me what Direct Action Day was? Like, why did it erupt into violence?
There's some Nehru and Jinnah had some conflict over some agreed negotiations or something, and then
Okay,
that's what I remember.
that's true. What are they negotiating about, Drew? What are they trying to negotiate about?
So originally they were using the three group system, but then there was something that happened, for example, it was something that happened in Madras, where they claimed that they may or may not want to be in a certain group, and other states started doing that, and then Jinnah accused Nehru of lying. So then, as a result of it, they ended up splitting, and so everyone ended up protesting, both Hindus and Muslims, and then they ended up clashing when they encountered each other, and that killed 4,000 people.
Yeah, it kills 4,000 people just in Calcutta. Let's be clear here, right? Because it also kills people in other cities, right? But Calcutta is the worst. Calcutta is the war where the violence is the worst. Um, and I think we need to put responsibility where responsibility needs to go. Jinnah is the one who calls for the Direct Action Day, right? So Jinnah calls for it. The Muslims go out and start it, but the Hindus are the ones who meet the Muslims in the streets with violence, right? So the Hindus are the ones who show up with weapons, but the Muslims are the ones who start the protest. Does that make sense? Right. So we need to. I think we need to give responsibility where responsibility needs to go. All right. The result of Direct Action Day, the result of everything falling apart, is partition. Okay. The Partition of India happens August 15th, 1947. August 15th, 1947. Both Pakistan and India become independent from England as two countries. Okay. Independence results in two countries, both of which become independent right away. The Pakistanis are not part of India and then have to break away from India. In fact, the British actually break Pakistan apart first and then grant independence to them both. Right? That's what happens. The partition is the cutting of these two countries. Now let's make sure we all understand what's going on here. The green here and the green here are both the same country. They're both Pakistan. Okay, so we're dealing with two countries, but in the case of Pakistan, it's in two pieces. Okay, West Pakistan and East Pakistan. I don't want you to think of them as two countries. It's not like a North Korea, South Korea situation, right? Where those are two countries. In this case, East and West Pakistan are one country. Okay, are we clear? Okay, this will become its own country in 1971, but right now it's part of Pakistan. Okay, this partition is drawn by the British. Okay, the British draw this border, and the British kind of do a fast job of it, right? The British are going to cause a lot of trouble with this border that they're going to draw. They sit down and they bring in a guy named Cyril Radcliffe. Here's Radcliffe down here, like Daniel Radcliffe, like Harry Potter, right? His name is Cyril Radcliffe. They bring him in, and he becomes the primary architect of this border, where he basically takes a big map of India and he goes, okay, this state has most Muslims, color it green. This state has most Hindus, color it orange. Orange over here, green over here, green over here, right? This works for most of the states, but two. What are the two states where it's going to be a problem? I think you guys know the two states that are going to be a problem. They're the two states that are a problem every single time. Raul, what are they?
Bengal.
And?
I don't know the other one.
Punjab. Punjab and Bengal. Okay. So the two problem states are Punjab and Bengal. Those are our two states that seem to be the cause of all the problems, right? Yash, do you know why those two states are always the problem states?
Is it because of like the lack of representation for like the Sikh population as well? Does that part play a part in the
Well, the Sikhs are over here. They're in Punjab, but there's no Sikhs in Bengal, right? There's no Sikhs in Bengal. They're all in Punjab. Okay, and so the Sikhs are a problem. The Sikhs are going to be an unusual problem for Punjab. But what else? Most of these states have a pretty clear majority, right? So like if I'm looking at a state right here, this state is going to be like 85% Hindu, right? If I'm looking at a state over here, the state's going to be like 85% Muslim. Most of the states have a clear majority. Bengal is only 55% Muslim. 55% Muslim in Bengal, 53% Muslim in Punjab, right? So that's a majority, 53% is a majority, but it's not a clear overwhelming majority, right? And you can't very well make a state where 45% of the population are Hindus with no Hindu representation at all, right? That doesn't work. So Radcliffe decides he has to cut Bengal in half and he has to cut Punjab in half. And so he basically just draws a line through the middle of Punjab and draws a line through the middle of Bengal. And he basically just says, this town is more Hindu, so it's going to go on this side. This town's more Muslim, it goes on this side. And he basically draws the line without being very careful about it. Okay. And a lot of these towns are like 51% Hindu, 51% Muslim, right? And he goes, well, 51%, that's where it is. And he just cuts it off, right? Cuts it right down the middle. And so he makes these lines here. The Radcliffe line, it's going to become known as the Radcliffe line. It's the black line on my map here. Okay, so it's the line that cuts Bengal, and it's the line that cuts Punjab and some of this other like disputed area here. Okay, so it's these disputed land areas. The British say that they're going to spend 5 years making this transition, but because of the violence of Direct Action Day, the British go from 5 years to 4 months. And the British are like, nah, we're out. Like staying here is going to make it worse. We're out. We're just out. They draw the line and then they get the hell out of there and they go, right? Because they're like, we don't want to be part of this at all. We want out. Okay. Here's the other thing that's controversial about this. Okay. They also keep the border secret. They don't let the public in. They don't let anyone in. The British are in a conference. They have some Hindu representatives, some Muslim representatives, some Sikhs, some representatives of the untouchable class, the lowest, the untouchable caste, the lowest caste, right? And then some business leaders. So there are South Asians in the room, right? Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, untouchables, and business leaders, right? They're in the room, but it's the British with the markers. British are the ones drawing things. And they basically just leave. And they leave and then they reveal the border 3 days after independence. So independence happens, everyone is happy and cheering and celebrating for independence. And then 3 days later, you find that your house is in the wrong country. Womp womp. Okay, they kept the border secret until after independence was done. Pretty awesome by the British, huh? Now, you may notice one other really big problem with this map. Okay, they also didn't draw a line through Kashmir. They left Kashmir undefined. Okay, go ahead and hold on to that one for a moment because that's going to be a real big problem in just a moment. Okay, and we're going to leave it alone for just a second. Kashmir is going to get its own little section because Kashmir is such a nightmare on its own. They basically just say, we don't know what Kashmir. Kashmir is one of the princely states, and they basically just say, well, let Kashmir figure it out for themselves. They'll be fine. And they just leave it at that. Okay, these other gray areas, Hyderabad never joins India. It doesn't want to be part of India, right? Daman and Diu doesn't want to be, Kalat doesn't want to be part of Pakistan. Sikkim doesn't want to be part. They just leave a whole bunch of these holes in the country, and they're just like, nah, that's a problem for future India to figure out. And then the British just leave. The result of partition is going to be the largest forced migration of humans in all of the world history. The largest forced migration of humans in all of world history. Okay. There's something we need to be aware of here. Pakistan is defined as an Islamic republic. Okay? It's an Islamic republic. This means that its government is built on Islam. Islam is part of its government. It can force people to convert or be deported from the country. It is the official religion of the country is Islam. Okay? If you are not a Muslim, you do not have rights in Pakistan. Okay? India is officially a secular country. India does not have an official religion. All religions are legal in India. Anyone can have any religion they want in India, including Islam, including Muslims. Okay? India clearly has a Hindu majority as well, right? Clearly, right? And the majority of elected officials are going to be Hindu just because that's what the way the numbers are, right? But Hinduism is not the official religion of India. India officially does not have a religion. Like the United States officially does not have a religion. Okay? But Pakistan does. This means that upon partition, anyone who is not a Muslim in Pakistan is forced to leave Pakistan. Anyone who's not a Muslim is forced to leave. So here's our migration. West Pakistan has 30 million people total. So this number is the total population of the country. This number is the refugees in the country. Okay, 11 million. East Pakistan, 30 million and almost 7 million. India has 330 million at this point and 15 million refugees. Okay, this is 11 million people being forced out of Pakistan, 15 million people being forced out of India, 6.5 million people being forced out of what will become Bangladesh. The red states are the states with the largest violence. Okay, we got to deal with these huge numbers here. The result, this 2 million number is a very solid number. The officially reported number is 200,000, but nobody believes that number anymore. The actual number is much closer to 2 million. 2 million people are murdered during this transition. 2 million people. Okay, the violence is going to take a couple of different forms. First, you're going to have tens of thousands of Hindu refugees being forced out of Pakistan. They're homeless, they're poor, they're starving, and they're angry. And then you're going to get tens of thousands of Muslims who are homeless, poor, starving, and angry, and they're being forced out of India. They're both walking on the same road, right? And when they walk on that same road, these guys say, we blame all you evil Hindus for everything that's happened to us, and we blame all you evil Muslims for everything that's happened to us, and they fight. This turns into massive violence on the roads. Massive, massive violence on the roads. We also going to get bandits, robbers and bandits and stuff who are going to set up shop. They're going to set themselves up along all these roads, and they're just going to attack everyone who's vulnerable. This becomes so bad that like entire trains, like in Delhi, right? They're going to load the train up with all the Muslims, and they're going to send the Muslims over to Pakistan, right? And they're trying to clear. Delhi's going to try to clear all the Muslims out of its city. Delhi's the capital of India now, and the Hindus don't want any Muslims living in their capital city. Well, Delhi is 1/3 Muslim. On the day before partition, Delhi's 1/3 Muslim. This means 1/3 of the city is going to be forced out of their homes. And they get loaded onto trains, and those trains head into Pakistan. These trains are going to become famous because the train will stop in the middle of the countryside, people will get on the train and murder every person on the train. And so when the train arrives in the station in Lahore, Pakistan right here, the train is carrying with it 2,000 corpses. All the Muslims were killed on the train. And so what do the Pakistanis do? They load a train heading back and do the same thing. Trains are just arriving into the stations with thousands of corpses in the trains. Okay? Women are going to be particularly vulnerable to the violence in this area. Okay? We have very reliable numbers that somewhere around 75,000 women will be raped during this time. 75,000 women will be raped. And that's only the number of women who survived, who didn't get murdered, right? We don't know about murdered women, right? Who may or may not have been raped before they were murdered. But 75,000 women will testify afterwards to being raped. 75,000. Violence against women is going to become incredibly popular, incredibly common. One of the common tactics that they're going to do is they're going to rape the women and then cut off their breasts to signal to everyone that they're damaged, and that they're dishonored and that they're not real women anymore. And so they cut off their breasts. Right? Pregnant women, they are regularly cutting open the bellies of the pregnant women, and so that the pregnant women can't produce new babies. Right? And this is Hindus cutting open the pregnant Muslim women, but it's also Muslims cutting open pregnant Hindu women. It's both sides are completely nightmarish about this. I'm sure that some of your Hindu parents want me to tell you guys that the Muslims are the guilty ones, and some of the Muslim parents want me to tell you that the Hindus are the guilty ones. But as an American who's not part of this, I'm looking at this and I'm seeing that both sides are pretty barbaric. I'm seeing that there's a lot of anti-Muslim violence and there's a lot of anti-Hindu violence. And I'm not really comfortable telling you which side is worse because they both look like just nightmarish monsters to me in a lot of these cases. We're going to get thousands and thousands of women who just kill themselves rather than being raped. We're going to get thousands of women who are just going to like throw themselves down a well, dive down into a well like head first, and then just snap their neck because they don't want to be gang raped by the group coming for them. Right? We're going to get married couples where the man is just going to snap his wife's neck because the crowd comes to beat him up, and the crowd kills him, but his wife is already dead because he wants to preserve her honor. Right? We're going to get a lot of that kind of stuff. If women are the biggest victims here, then I would say the Sikhs are probably the second biggest victim, because the Sikhs are going to find themselves victimized by both the Muslims and the Hindus, right? The nightmare that the Sikhs have, that they're going to be stuck between two enemies, right? Two very powerful enemies. They have Muslims on one side and the Hindus on the other, right? The nightmare comes to pass because both the Hindus and the Muslims are going to attack and kill the Sikhs. Now the Muslims, Sikhism and Hinduism are both considered illegal in Pakistan, right? And they're both considered heresy against God, right? And so the Pakistanis are trying to kill them for that reason. But the Sikhs are getting killed in India by Hindus as well, mostly just because the Hindus are angry. We're just dealing with angry mobs, and angry mobs aren't really very careful about who they attack. And they're just attacking and killing whoever is in their way. There's another big problem for the Sikhs. The Radcliffe line goes right through the Sikh Holy Land. And so it cuts the Sikhs off from their holy sites. Their two holiest sites. One of them is in Pakistan and one of them is in India. And so if you're a Sikh living in Pakistan, you can't go to the Indian site. And if you're a Sikh living in India, you can't go to the Pakistani site. No matter what you do, you are cut off from one of your holy sites. Yeah, the Sikhs are going to be extra losers in this, okay? One of the other big major problems with the Radcliffe line is that the Radcliffe line doesn't take into account where the rivers are flowing. That we have Pakistani villages drinking water from Indian rivers, and we have Indian villages drinking water from Pakistani rivers, right? And so what's going to happen, of course, I think we can see this happening a mile away, right? The Indians are going to put a dam on the river and starve the Pakistani village, and then the Pakistanis put a dam on their river and starve the Indian village. We're going to have this huge network of just terrible behavior on both sides. Okay? This is bad. It's very, very bad, right? Look at these numbers. So we have 11 plus 14. So what's that? 20, 25, 26, right? Plus another 7. So 26 plus 7 is what? 33. So that's 33 million people who are made homeless. 33 million people. That's roughly the population of the United States at this time period. Yeah. 33 million people. Okay. So that's the scale of what we're dealing with here. Yeah. The British wanted to avoid a war, and they did kind of avoid a war, kind of. They just had to make 33 million people homeless, 33 million people homeless, and 2 million people dead in violence. Okay. My in-person class also, we spent some time on Kashmir, but I'm not sure we're going to have time to do Kashmir if we want to do talk about our outlines for the test, right? So I can do Kashmir next week with you guys and do outlines for the test, because the test is due tonight. So I need you to do the test tonight. Do you guys have questions about partition before we move on to the outlines? No? Okay. Oh, the question you should have is, how long did this take? So partition, the violence of partition, the really, really nasty violence of partition took place for about a year and a half, somewhere around there. But the effects of partition take place over the next 15 to 20 years. We're going to have people in refugee camps without homes for 15 years. Okay? Just because there's so many homeless people. There's so many people who are displaced. Okay? This also radically changes all these cities. On the day before partition, Delhi is 1/3 Muslim. Today, Delhi is like 5% Muslim. On the day before partition, Calcutta is 55% Muslim. Today, it's like 90% Hindu. On the day before partition, Karachi in Pakistan, the largest city of Pakistan, Karachi is 50% Hindu. It was a 50-50 city, and they exported 50% of the city of Karachi, right? Lahore was a 50-50 city. Actually, it was more like a 33-33 city, because it was Hindu, Sikhs, and Muslims, right? And today it's a 100% Muslim city. Like, the cities are radically changed. Radically changed. Okay. All right, let's deal with do you guys need, if you don't want help on your outlines, you're free to go. You're free to go. But if you do want help with outlines, we can discuss them. Go ahead and stay on and pull up your outlines, and let's see what we got. All right, let's start with our first question here. All right, Ilha, can you read question A for us?
Yeah, evaluate the unique role education played in spreading the concept of satyagraha in early 20th century India.
Okay. All right. Who has some ideas? What am I looking for with this answer, with this question? Did you guys already start writing your thesis statements and stuff? You're looking at me like you didn't do it yet. All right, Ro, what do you got so far? What do you think we're gonna put in this answer?
I haven't worked on this one, but I was thinking about the Williams College and the Asiatic Society College, but those are before
Satyagraha.
Yeah.
So they are really early, so you don't want to make them a big part of your essay. You can make a mention of them, but they shouldn't be a big part of the essay, right? What does Satyagraha require in order for you to understand it the way that Gandhi understands it? What does it require?
Non-violence.
No, it is nonviolence. It's nonviolent resistance, right? But Gandhi specifically, he's not making this up, right? Gandhi got it from somewhere. Where did he get it from?
From like older scriptures or the stuff that was found, I guess, in the Bengali Renaissance, maybe too.
Okay, so it comes from the ancient Hindu idea of ahimsa, right? So Gandhi's taking this ancient idea, he's modernizing it, he's turning it into from this ancient idea of avoiding action to this modern idea of doing action, right? In order for Gandhi to do that, he needs people to be educated. People need to know about Hinduism before he can revive Hinduism. Does that make sense to you guys? Right? If I come at you with a new interpretation of the Bible, that doesn't mean anything if you've never read the Bible. Right? You're like, oh, here's this book I've never read. And I say, I got a new idea about the book. And you're like, I don't care. Right? But if you have a book that you've read your entire life and you know it really, really well, and then I come in with a new interpretation of it, right? Boom, I blew your mind. This is what Gandhi's doing here. So the education here is that Gandhi requires that Hindu revivalism. He requires that resurgence of Hinduism. Who's responsible for that, education-wise? Who did we got? I gave you a specific person who was responsible for that.
Tilak.
Tilak, right? Yeah, Michael, what did Tilak do?
I guess he just created through some of the things he did, he sort of established a stronger Hindu nationalism identity.
And he specifically did something while he was in prison. What did he do while he was in prison?
He rewrote a newer version of the Bhagavad Gita.
Exactly. He updated the Bhagavad Gita and he wrote new analysis of it. Right? So Tilak is bringing up this new Hinduism. He's updating Hinduism, right? When he's updating Hinduism, we're almost ready for Gandhi. Now, who's our other big guy associated with education? Who's the other guy? Tilak's rival. He welcomed Gandhi.
Gopal Krishna Gokala.
Yeah, Gokal, right? So Gokal is our next big guy. And Drew, tell me what Gokal did.
Well, Gopal essentially opposed Tilak's radicalism, and he was pretty much like, I forgot his name in the civil rights movement, but whoever the guy who talked about incremental change, pretty much that was Gokal. He's pretty much said India needs to gain its independence incrementally, and that kind of pissed Tilak off.
Right, exactly. He's kind of our Booker T. Washington figure, right? Yeah. So Tilak revives Hinduism. Gokal revives literacy and building more schools, right? New Hinduism plus new schools equals an educationally ripe area for Gandhi to come in with a new kind of satyagraha. So this question is like a Gokal Tilak question, right? Gokal Tilak Gandhi question. Let's move to the next question. Alec, can you read me number B, question B?
I don't have that question.
You should log on to Canvas and pick up the question. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah, you should.
I have it open. Where can I go to?
Yeah. All right, Yash, give me question B.
The British were primarily responsible for the animosity between Hindus and Muslims during the independence movement. Discuss.
Okay. All right, so let's start us off. All right. So this is one of these questions where you're basically making an argument. You're going to make an argument that the Hindus and Muslims were mostly responsible for the violence themselves, or the British were mostly responsible for stoking the violence. Okay. If you think of every answer conceptually on a scale of 5, 0 means the British are 0% responsible, right? 1 is they're 0% responsible. 5 over here means that the British are 100% responsible. Okay? You're never going to say 0 or 100%. Those are just, it's just not true, right? You're also never going to say the middle answer, which is 50%, right? Because that's not really an answer. That's like saying some women are pregnant and other women are not. Well, thanks. You just listed all women, right? You're saying sometimes the British are responsible and sometimes they're not. Well, that's not an answer, right? So your answer is always going to be effectively that the British are mostly innocent or mostly guilty, right? This question is not my question. This is a question that I took off of a previous test. I just pasted it right off of a test from previous years. It's good because the answer can go either way. I think there's a lot of evidence that the British are guilty and a lot of evidence that the Hindus and Muslims are. Okay. All right. So what's our evidence that the British are mostly guilty?
The
Yeah, Raul, go. Sorry.
Radcliffe line, as we were just discussing.
Okay. So the British made violence worse with the Radcliffe line. What else, Raul?
I think it was the same day we talked about the indigo plantations and how the British were doing that. Then they allowed some members of the Muslim and Hindu communities to represent their sides in British Parliament, but they had them as 50-50 representation in there, and that stoked controversy because of the population. It wasn't equal ratio.
That's good. You're going to want to check your notes and check the dates on that because it's not Indigo Revolution, but you're right. You're right. You're going to want to check it's later. It's about 50 years after, but you're correct. You're correct as long as you check the dates. But that's good, right? So the British are obviously stoking the flames. What else? What else makes the British guilty? All through the British Raj period, right? All through the British Raj period, the British are the ones giving money, power, and weapons to the Muslims, right? They're giving preferential treatment to the Muslims over and over and over again, right? That's the divide and conquer. Okay, so let's flip it now. What says that the British are mostly innocent? That the Muslims and Hindus did this to themselves. Yash, what's the best argument for that?
You could say like you could talk about, I guess, the general problems that happen between Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs, and with that, I guess like everything plays into a part of the British. I'm not entirely sure. I don't.
Okay, Drew,
So-
help us out.
So Bal Gangadhar Tilak is a pretty good example. Like for
Yeah.
example, the Ganesha festival, how he said, and the Shivaji festival, he said that who is an Indian and who isn't, and he openly stated that Muslims are not Indians.
Right, that's good. I think Tilak is one of the strongest evidence because Tilak is not British, right? Tilak is not British, and there's a lot of evidence that Tilak was, he was anti-British. Right? So yeah, I think Tilak is some pretty strong evidence there. I think you can also make a lot of evidence that Islam teaches that Hinduism is a heresy, right? Muslims have a long history of being violent against Hindus. We also have hundreds of years of tension between the groups. Muslims had conquered India and had been pretty brutal to Hindus in the past. And Hindus have risen up against Muslims and been pretty brutal against Muslims in the past too, right? We have quite a long history of that. Yeah, we also have a lot of like Jinnah versus Nehru and Patel, who they're like sniping at each other and fighting with each other in a way where the British have nothing to do with that, right? They just don't trust each other and they're sniping at each other quite a bit. Yeah, so I think there's a good amount of evidence there. All right, Mike, give me the next number C.
Okay, number C. To what extent were the women of India responsible for its independence?
Good. All right, so again, on our scale of 5, right? You're never going to say 100% responsible or 0%, and you can't say sometimes they are and sometimes they aren't, right? So you're going to say the women are mostly responsible, right? Like a really large integral part, or mostly forgotten and not, did some stuff, but mostly not that much, right? What do we think is probably the best answer?
For the most part, women were pretty responsible.
Yeah. Are we going to say that the women are mostly responsible more than the men, or are the men more responsible?
Well, the men were more responsible.
Yeah, I think clearly the men are mostly the ones in charge here, right? All the leaders are men. All the people negotiating with the British are men, right? All the people negotiating with the British are men. All the British negotiators are men. All the leadership are men, right? The primary, like if you look at all the pictures and videos of like satyagrahas and stuff, they're mostly men, right? They're mostly men. So I think clearly the men are more responsible than the women. So at that point, what you need to do is you need to say, point out what the women did do, right? Because the women aren't absent, right? Clearly they're less responsible, but they're not absent. They are there. All right. So Ilha, help us out. What are some of the women responsible for?
There are some like major women like Mithubin Petit or Sarojini Naidu that like played major roles in satyagrahas and other like Indian in the independence movement.
Okay. So in your essay, do you want to just give me a list of women's names?
No, you want to
What
say what
you,
they did?
yeah, you want to tell me, you want to say like women had a support role in many of the satyagrahas because the women would be organizing the women of a village. They would be, burying the valuables in order to hide it from British tax collectors, right? That those women would be doing this. One example of that is Mithubin Petit in the Bardoli Satyagraha, right? That Mithubin Petit and Sarojini Naidu, they become evidence of the greater idea, right? They aren't your argument, they're the evidence supporting your argument. Is that clear? You guys with me on that? Okay, what else did women really do? So they have support roles in some specific satyagrahas. What else?
Just more collectively helped out, were the one who were making the clothes and stuff during the Swaraj movement,
Not Swaraj, what?
Swadeshi movement.
Swadeshi, yeah. Yeah, I think, Raul, I think that's probably the biggest point, that the women are really driving Swadeshi movement, that the women are the ones making the clothes, the women are the ones gathering the salt, the women are the ones growing the food and, drying the spices and stuff. Like the women are the ones doing a lot of that, right? And so, the woman's wheel, the sewing wheel becomes the symbol of the movement. The entire symbol of the movement is a woman's tool, right? And so I think Raul, that's probably the strongest argument, right? Ilha's support argument is a good secondary one. Do we have something else that the women are doing?
There was the one woman who led the first women regiment when the one dude sided with the British.
Yeah, you can use her as an example as well. She's not the strongest example, but you can use her as an example of women who are, supporting the movement in a non-traditionally female role, right? That's a traditionally masculine thing to do, right? I think that's good. All right, give me the next question. Who's got the next question? Drew, have you got the next question?
Yes, I do. So do you examine the impact of the two world wars on the relative power of the Muslim League?
Okay. So did World War One, give me an arrow, up or down? Did World War One increase or decrease Muslim League's power? Did it increase or decrease the Muslim League's power? Did World War One? Increase or decrease? You're all just waiting for Drew to answer so you can copy Drew. That's not good. Give me an arrow, up or down. Increase or decrease? Did World War One increase or decrease the Muslims? Come on, give me an answer. Come on, stop being scared. Give me an answer. You know the answer. Raul, what is it, man? Give me an arrow, up or down.
I'll go with down.
All right, Raul's saying down. He's not giving us his arrow, but he should. Come on, hold your arrow out so that people can see. All right, come on, Mike. Come on, Yash. Dhruv says down. Yash says up. All right, clearly the Muslim League gains power after World War I. This isn't a trick question. They clearly gain power after World War I. Right? Does the Muslim League gain power after World War II? Up or down? Okay, they clearly gain power after World War II as well. This isn't a trick question, you guys. Like, I'm not trying to, the Muslim League gains power both times, right? Did they gain power more after World War I or after World War II? World War II, right? Yash, you're looking really confused. You're not liking this. What's going on, man? What's your problem?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like my notes don't really cover this well, so I'm not sure.
Okay, after World War I, the Muslims are supporting the war, right? In both cases, the Muslims support the British and support the war, right? And in both cases, they use that to get political advantage with the British. They get special treatment with the British. They get special negotiating stance with the British. They get invited into the negotiations. They're given more power than they deserve, right? That happens after World War I and after World War II. The difference is in what they're asking for. In World War I, they're asking for independence. In World War II, they're asking for independence and an independent state, a separate state, right? After World War II, they get independence and a separate state. Therefore, their power is greater because they succeeded. Does that make sense? Right? Their power is clearly more after World War II. Okay, so what you need to do is evaluate how that power is working out, right? In both cases, they're supporting the war. In both cases, they're getting political invitations by the British, and they're getting political power by the British, and special economic relationships with the British, right? The difference is in what they're demanding. Okay, real quick, let's knock out this last one because I got people coming in my room. Here, bailiffs. Here, come here. All right, here, you need one of each of these, and you're gonna need some of these. You need to fill this out while you're doing the thing. Okay, here, you need one of each of those, Roy, and you need these. These are the forms that you have to keep track of the times on, right? So if the prosecution during the direct, they use like 5 minutes and 10 seconds, you put 5:10, right? During a redirect, you'd be like 30 seconds, right? Okay, and then you need one of each of those. Well, you're going to need them. You're going to need at least one for every match, but if you should take a couple in case you screw it up. I made like 30 copies, so I'm kind of counting on you guys screwing it up a little bit and needing to fix it and read it. Make sure to grab the orange one. I think you missed the orange one. Cool. All right, I'll see you online at 10. Sorry, guys. I have a mock trial people coming in. All right. Oh, man, we're still recording. Oh, well, it'll just be a big one. All right. Sorry, guys. Okay, Yash, let's read the last question for me.
Analyze the economic impact Gandhi had on the independence movement.
Are you now or? Okay, where is it? Okay. Okay, I'll have to go over there and find it. Yeah, I'll pull my van over and meet you there. Yeah, give me like maybe 20 minutes or so or a half hour. Awesome, thank you. Sorry, the bell rang. Okay, so this is the economic impacts of Gandhi, right? Right? So the first big economic, I'm just going to run these through real quick. The first big one is Swadeshi. Swadeshi increases the Indian economy by increasing the domestic market and productivity, right? So that's the first one. The next one is Satyagraha. Satyagraha weakens the British by costing them money, by costing them tax revenue and costing them money, right? Making India as expensive as possible. So he's increasing the Indian economy through Swadeshi. He's decreasing the British economy through Satyagraha, right? And then he's also taking other economic problems of the world and making them worse for the British. So when the Great Depression hits Britain and they're under pressure, Gandhi says, all right, let's crank it up. And he does more satyagrahas, right? When the British are under massive economic pressure for World War II, what does Gandhi do? Quit India movement. And he pushes that pressure up, right? So he takes existing economic pressure and puts more pressure on it. Does that make sense to you guys? Are you good? Okay, I have to go because I have people waiting for me. So I'm gonna go, I gotta go. Cool? Are we good? All right, I'll see you guys.